Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to Views for the 8%. Today, I know I say this every time, but I'm so excited for my guest. I can't say enough. She is a researcher, a private practice owner, a mom, and most importantly to me, in my journey, she is a professor, and she really just changed the way that I viewed SLP. She made me see that it was okay to be myself because she was herself, and I loved it, and we're going to get more into it. For today's beautiful views, we have Dr. Valencia Perry of the illustrious Howard University.
Yes, Howard University,
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, I just want to get started with letting the people know who you are, a little bit of info about who you are, what you do, what you identify with.
So yes, my name is Valencia Perry, and I'm a speech language pathologist, and I practice as a bilingual clinician. I like to consider myself, I even wrote this on an ASHA submission for the conference coming up. I'm bilingual and bidialectal. I'm claiming it.
As you should, as you should.
Why does it always have to be bilingual? Bidialectal is a skill. Code switching is a skill. Everybody can't do it. So I put that on my bio. She's a bilingual, bidialectal speech language pathologist and researcher at Howard University. So that's how I identify myself. And most importantly, I know I'm leaving it last, but being a professor is important to me because I love teaching. I don't like all that comes with it, but my favorite thing to do is teaching. I actually feel like I'm the worst teacher ever. So I'm always striving to be better because I'm so casual with the students. Sometimes it's not good, but that's the thing that I like to do. And I felt like a lot of my mentors were casual with me, especially when I became a doc student at Howard. And because I went all the way through, I had strong relationships. So it was just always about family. So that's how I try to approach teaching, because you see, look at us, we talking now. You done been, see, that's AAE in case you don't know, done and been, right? It is it's a past tense indicator, and it means that it was in the distant past. It wasn't something in the recent past. Because AAE has more tenses than standard American English. So you done been graduated, girl.
Thank you. Look at her already dropping knowledge. Y'all aren't ready for this, but I'm gonna put you on, okay? Also, another thing I hope everybody took note of: add bidialectal to your resumes, add it to your CVs, add it to anything, because it is valid, it's important. People need to know. If that's a skill you possess, show it, showcase it. But yeah, so going back to, again, you chose the doctoral, the professorial path. What made you decide to just keep going through? Why did you choose that? And I know you said you love to teach, but how did you even know that before you were a teacher?
Well, I didn't know I wanted to be a speech pathologist. So, you stumble into it, and I was avoiding it. But I couldn't find anything that could be nothing's guaranteed, but as guaranteed as this career. And in searching for stability, this was the best fit for me. So in thinking about the future and seeing at the time when I was in the master's program, PT had just adopted the DPT, and it was standard practice. And they were saying that OTs were going to move in that direction to doctorize. It's called doctorizing the professions. I even studied it when I worked at ASHA because I was in that unit of academic affairs. So we talked about the doctorizing of the professions. That was something the Academic Affairs Board did a lot of research on. So but this was obviously after I had already gotten a PhD, this time frame that I'm speaking about. But when I was a master's student and PT was going in that direction, we had a lot of mixers and events. I don't know if you've ever been to any, but in DC, we had it's like the Black Network of Rehab Professionals. We're still in communication to this day. I actually got an email from them recently from some of the OTs. And so the OTs, PTs, and SLPs sometimes will have even respiratory therapists in the mix, would have like these mixers. And so just being in communication with a lot of other professionals before IPP was a thing or IPE was a thing, I learned that the doctorate could open doors for you that the master's wouldn't allow. So there are researchers who publish, who do with master's degrees, but in order to design a study and to oversee it, you have to have the PhD. So I didn't really want to get the PhD, but I knew I wasn't done learning. And at the time, I was thinking if I don't get the PhD, I might regret it. So I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. And because I'm young, I had youth on my side at the time. Because I was young, I was like, I could just try now. I can just go straight through, because the one mistake that I saw a lot of people make, and this is not always a mistake for everybody, but in some of the failures, so to speak, that I was looking at, because no one's truly a failure, but in some of those failed attempts, many of them just couldn't adjust to student life as a doc student because it drains you. And so I said, I'm not doing this, when I'm older and established, because if I need to quit my job, if I need to cut back on time, I don't want this to be a burden in my life. So yeah, I did it before I was ready, which was, some parts was good, some parts were bad, but overall, I'm glad I did it, because I know deep down I am a researcher. So yeah, that was a long answer.
It's okay. It was a good answer. What is your what was the interest that like made you feel like this is what I want to research? I want to continue to know more about this and design my own study about this. What was so important to you?
Yeah, I think the experience in engaging in research at an undergraduate level was the first thing. Seeing researchers at Howard who looked like me, who I wanted to. When I saw Kay Payne, she used to have long hair that she used to wear like this in the back of her head, and she used to wear these bows on her head, and she always coordinated her outfits so well, and she was so classy and refined. She never had chip nails, and not to say that you're not, but I remember seeing Kay Payne. I remember seeing Joan Payne was flat. She stayed decked out. She used to wear these furs. These professors, and they would always say Howard doesn't pay well, but it didn't matter, because they knew that they were in a system of they had good network, good communications, good interactions with people. They had a great quality of life, and seeing them made me say, I want to do that. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I'm going to study this. It was like, who are the women that are leading, and let me figure out what they're doing, and let me just shadow them. And so I got internship opportunities. I got on Kay Payne's grant, Dr. Kay Payne, Dr. Joan Payne, I should say, right? These women, following them allowed me to see that research is something that I could do, because I thought it was dumb. And I thought it was dumb because it was beyond my capacity at the time. So I was like, oh, research is dumb. This is dumb. This is stupid. Ain't nobody trying to do that. It's no diversity. But when you see diverse people talking about issues that affect
Opens
the Black community, yeah, and I'm from DC, so, and I'm from PG County, so it's like the things that we were talking about were things that I experienced. I didn't grow up, in a 2-parent household most of my life. I mean, at parts, sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. It was
which is a story with itself, right?
I didn't go to a diverse school. My school was diverse because it was Black and Hispanic, right? I mean, so it wasn't like I had opportunities that were the best in terms of the conditioning that I had. So seeing this excellence at Howard across the board, I was like, I got to do that. I don't care if they don't make a lot of money. I don't care if they don't. They obviously do, because they're living well and they don't look stressed. So
and they fly, right?
Yeah, and they don't want you to do it for the wrong reasons. So that sometimes they'll say things like that, like, you don't do this for the money. Dr. Robinson used to always say, you're not going to come to this profession for the money, right? Because they want you to understand that it's not about the money. But reading the Bible helped me. Reading Proverbs, I read it for like years. And so I have Proverbs like ingrained in my head, and your gift will make room for you. So you can get a low paying job. And if you're talented, you're going to have a wait list. I had jobs where I came in making pennies, because of the setting. I just wanted to learn from that setting. And then over time, excellence is not going to be hidden. So you'll start to have people seeking you out, and then you can change your rate and you can ask for more. And I was always afraid. I had that complex to ask for more. So just again, seeing these women boss up, like back then, even till today, that's what made me want to say, this is what I want to do. I want to be a researcher, but I want to be a clinician at the same time. Nobody was really doing that but them.
Right. Right. I definitely relate to that. I relate to all of that, being able to see people that look like you and being like, wow, that's the life for me. Like that, I definitely feel that. And then you also went, because you do multiple things, wear multiple hats. You also own your own business. So how did you go towards that path as well?
One of my biggest mentors was Angela Grice. And she was all, do you know Dr. Grice?
I've never met her, but I've heard of
Okay.
her.
I know you heard of her.
Right.
Yeah. So she was like bossed up, like from the moment I met her. And she always had her own business. She always had multiple jobs, but she always had her own business, and she always had a business mindset. But she had a doctorate, and she is a phenomenal researcher. So she knows research very well, but a lot of people don't know that because she's in a clinical setting. She does more synthesizing and applying it, right? So with Dr. Grice, when I saw her, I was her intern, and I saw how she was moving. Again, you got to watch how people move.
Yep.
I said, I want to live like this. I don't want to go to the same job every day. I want to go to different jobs every day. I want to make my own money. I want to have money hit the bank and be like, oh, I got paid. I don't want to wait for people to pay me, unless I'm waiting on the school to cut a check. So she started having, school contracts. And I got my first business training from Angela Grice. And that's what made me say, okay, this is what I want to do. But I also knew that I really wanted to be a researcher, because the desire deep down in me was, who's going to do this research if I don't do it? That was always the question, like, who's going to study AAE? And there's so many people that study AAE, but I feel like I'm more than that. I look at I'm a sociolinguistics, person. I look at the influence of culture on language, whether it's AAE, whether it's Afro-Latino culture, whatever it may be. And I like to look at how that affects our ability to read and write. So not just in spoken language, but in written language in particular. And where are the systemic racism and flaws and biases in the systems that are built in to keep people out of touch and out of opportunities? Why is it that we have so few African Americans in STEM? Is it because of poverty, or is it because of illiteracy? Is it a mix? Is it a cultural thing? Why did I say that research was dumb? Right. So it's like I felt like that was my calling. So that innate drive to want to study this a little bit deeper than at a clinical level, but still be a clinician, and then seeing these models of women who were clinicians and researchers and how they were succeeding and excelling and really owning their spheres, that's what made me say, I want to do that too. So it was a multiple factors. The best thing you can do if you want some advice for like your listeners, because I feel like you have a lot of young listeners too. You have some my age and older, I'm sure, but particularly when you're speaking to the younger ones, the future clinicians or the new clinicians, in ASH we call them early career professionals, ECPs. When you speak to them, it's get the experiences. Never ever ever frown upon an experience. A negative experience is still a quality experience because it teaches you what you don't want. So the horrible sites taught me something. The great sites taught me something. Spending time on the weekends with my mentors and my supervisors taught me more. Watching them in their settings and watching them transition from one setting to the next and see how they handle problems taught me a lot. So it was more about how you move than what you do or what job you get. Because the opportunities, like I said, are going to come when you do a good job.
Yeah. And then going back to that, because another thing that, again, the young listeners and even beyond young, because we've all experienced, is student debt. A lot of people are concerned about money, making money, if they're going to be able to make enough money where they're at. And I think something that you touched on is, excellence will not be hidden. If it's for you, it'll be for you. It'll come to you. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I can relate to that. Like, I have obviously been getting way more opportunities as, I put myself out there and discover more and learn more. So the way that the money will come, and don't hide from what you can do what you can where you are, and it'll come to you. Don't let that be a barrier.
Yes. Yeah, you can't hide it. Money is energy. It took me a long time to realize that. And I'm not balling, and I'm in student debt. You think I can? No.
Yeah.
I don't care. one, when you're a researcher, you get some, you get forgiveness if you're at a public institution. We're not, though, we're at a private, so that doesn't apply, but I'm still in service. But then whatever, like, what's new? It's just a piece of paper that says I owe money. Okay, I'll just send you a check. I'm not going to stress out over this. I'm not going to allow this to consume me, because I was in a position where I was just, oh, I'm touching me so much data, whatever. Not to say don't address it, but I'm so fulfilled in what I do. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So speaking to the private practice, I got into it because I was in debt. and I was like, okay, I had this job at ASHA. I was making a good salary. I had just got my PhD. So I'm working in academic affairs and research education, loving it. Very few minorities in that sphere, in that space. At the national office, not just in ASHA, but just in the association as well, because I was an ex officio to a SIG, and then I would assist my boss, who was fantastic. I would assist her on different projects. And so she was an ex officio to other groups. Like I mentioned earlier, the Academic Affairs Board. I learned so much working at ASHA, and I was paid well on top of it. But when the announcement about Howard's job came out, I was like, I gotta go. And I was just going through so much turmoil in my life. I was unstable, and I needed to be in a place that would give me more nurturing and more compassion and more opportunities to be flexible and to get the work done in a flexible way. And being a professor allows you to have flexibility. And that's the one thing that I didn't really have at ASHA. They were pretty flexible. They're more flexible now because of the pandemic. But at this time, this was years before the pandemic, it just wasn't, I have 3 kids, and I had just had a kid. It was just not the right timing to be in a 9 to 5 type of situation for me. I was seriously late, like every day. I had to drop off 3 kids at 3 different places. It took me 2 hours to get to work. If it was just 30 minutes behind, it could be a bad traffic jam, and then I'm late. I couldn't live like that. I was so stressed out. Yeah. And I was driving all over the city, dropping my kids off, trying to find affordable daycare, because I was, wasn't with their dad at the time, and still not, but I'm adjusted now, and I was getting adjusted then. And when you have major transitions like that in your life, and you have a 9 to 5 job, it's very hard to just you need to take days off. You need to figure things out. Things were happening so quickly and abruptly for me. I didn't have a lot of leave. So I was like, I have to go back to teaching. I was always teaching adjunct. But I said, I have to go back to being a professor, because I'm not for this 9 to 5 life. I'm not, I can't, my kids are too young. So when I went to Howard, they didn't pay what I was getting paid. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. But it was I had way more flexibility, and I wasn't expected to be at work 9 to 5 or even every day. And so that was cool. And I had summers off. And as a mom with 3 kids, I'm all in. So it's trade-offs in life. I took that trade-off, but that meant then that my debt was just now going to be out of control, because I already had built up all this debt when I was young, living my best life, thinking I was cute, racking up credit card debt and student loan debt. And so I was able to pay it when I was making good money. But then when I decided to go be a professor and got that pay cut, it was like, oh, now what? So I started working as a contractor, doing side gigs. I was always doing them, even at ASHA, just like some consulting, not really doing a lot because I didn't have the time, but I was still in, little networks, consulting with people about clinical issues and teaching adjunct. And so, when the job opened up, I applied because I felt like I would be really good in this position to replace Dr. K. Payne. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't keep a job like part-time, because when you're a professor, you still have to be certain places, you still have to do certain things. You still, sometimes, at Howard, unfortunately, they might call you and be like, we need you now. Mm-hmm. So having a part-time job that they want me to be a little more reliable than what I couldn't be that. So I said, the only thing I could do is start a business. That's the only way I'll be able to make side money and not have to work for somebody, so that I can still do well at Howard, so that I can get tenure. Because if I take a side job too seriously, I might not be able to publish, and then I won't get, I won't be even able to sit for tenure, because I won't have the required publications, and I won't have any grants, I won't, all I'll have is teaching. And while I do feel like I'm a good teacher, that's not what's going to get you tenure. So that's how I ended up in private practice. It was a need, and I couldn't work anywhere else because they were always asking for more. And I was getting over nice girl syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to work for myself.
Have to. Have to. And I appreciate that, because another thing that I wanted to talk about is, you're a mom, you do all these different things, and I want to know how you juggle it. And I also want to know about your experience when the roles were reversed and you had a child in speech therapy. How did that go for you?
Yes, you remember that?
Of course I remember
Did you
that.
remember that? It's crazy. It's the best feeling in the world, because in my private practice, maybe 60% of what I do is coaching mothers, because I need to be flexible. And so a lot, like 80% of my clients I see via teletherapy. So I'm not really dealing with schools like that. I have an alternative school that I consult with, but I'm not really in schools. My lane is private practice with insurance companies and private pay. And that was a learning curve. But yeah,
I'm on that curve now.
It's a learning curve. I'm still on that curve.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard. So I'm doing teletherapy primarily, and I have an office where I see patients in once or twice out of the week, not even every week, because again, I just can't, I don't have that luxury. So mine's, most of my patients if I see them multiple times in a week, like twice in a week or something like that, it might be one teletherapy session, one face-to-face session, but I'm not seeing face-to-face clients more than once a week. So, anyways, back to the story with the situation with motherhood. My middle son had a articulation issue and an overall little just delay, and I don't know what the root of it was, but I know it was kind of chaotic at that point in my life. And so I took him to my friend's private practice who graduated from me, Loren Bryant. She's now Reynolds. And she had a great center. And I also did some contracting with her and working with her center and seeing how she was running her business. Because again, I was looking at researchers who were contracting with schools or nursing homes. I had never really had mentorship from someone who had a business that was taking insurance. And so I did from one company, but I worked at a school with them and not in their facility until later on. So seeing that showed me that, okay, maybe I could do my own business thing too. And I started working with my son on his speech, but there was just something about the relationship of you can't be your own physician, right? His physician healed thyself. So I was trying to work with my son, and I was like, this is just not it. And so I took him to her practice, and she actually had, she evaluated him, but she had interns working with him. And, I was correcting a lot of things that they were doing, but they were interns. So it was appropriate, but it actually showed me how therapy works. And therapy works even if you don't have to know everything. If you just the act of doing something that can help that person get from A to B is usually enough. And the way he would react to his cute young clinicians, he loved them. And so he was doing things for them that he wouldn't do for me. So even though they weren't doing Professor Mommy stuff, they could be doing something that's so simple, but he was more motivated to perform for them than he was for me. And God allowed me to go through that experience, because when I coach mothers, I used to coach mothers, and I used to say, you got to work with your child every day. Every day, you got to do your drills. And COVID hit. And I recall what I was going through with my own kids. And I still, will have the kids go to the speech and hearing clinic. Not now, but I always have my kids getting services at Howard, right? So even if they don't need them, just evaluate them, right? So get your hours, right? Just evaluate them. So I was like, okay, I can't work with him the way I want to work with him, but yet he's making progress. And so I learned how to coach mothers in a better way to help them not feel mom guilt for not being able to work with their kids, but accepting help and knowing that there's something that they can do at home indirectly to help them, that they don't always have to do direct coaching. They can leave that to us. And then we can get an assistant, or we can get a facilitator, we can get a babysitter, we can get somebody that we can train to do a couple activities with them during the week, maybe grandma, grandpa. We can involve people in the family to help, because a lot of mothers are overburdened, especially with young children with communication issues. Most of my kids are either late talkers or and I hate to say late talkers, I know person first language. So children who, have delayed communication skills, very young children, or they're children with articulation issues or literacy issues, which all go hand in hand, honestly. Mm-hmm. So working with the mothers to help them overcome the shame, overcome the guilt, be able to help get the children the services they need, and to see change rapidly, because in private practice, if you're not making changes, they're going to leave. So, how can I get quick results and still get the child to have practice every day without stressing the parents out? So I think that's why I went through that experience. I really do, because it's changed me and it's shaped me as a clinician to have way more compassion for the mothers than I ever could have had I not gone through that personally. So yeah, and he's doing a lot better. So
that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And also there was a lot in that story that I hope everybody, took into consideration, because I think that's something that us as clinicians, we do a lot. We are like hard on the parents, or we expect way too much out of them and don't really have any empathy or understanding for what's going on in their lives. And then another thing is, when it comes to most families of color, we are collectivist rather than individualistic. So like you said, involving the rest of the community, involving the parents and the grandma and the babysitter, and just as long as there's somebody working with him, because we know that kid is going to go through a lot of adults. He's going to go through his entire community. So we don't just have to put it all on one person. So yeah, I think that's great. Free game for the people.
It builds a web of support. I use that analogy often. It's like a net. When you start involving other people, you build a net so that the child can't fail, because everybody raises their expectation of the child. And, that's another biblical principle about raising the standard, right? So it's like, if we raise the standard, you have to rise to the occasion or you're going to sink. And children don't want that. So they usually want to do what's expected of them. If I expect you to talk, usually you'll talk. Especially if I set the stage so that the expectation allows you to have rewards when you perform well, and praise. So you just figure out what they want and you build a system that's structurally sound so that child cannot fail. And if you stress the mother out, the child's going to fail.
That's it. It's really that simple. I think that's great information, for the parents and for the future clinicians. And so I kind of want to switch gears a little bit before we end. And I want to know what you want to see change in the field as a whole.
Okay. So because I was at ASHA, I'm going to speak about the pipeline. The pipeline is, they call it a bottleneck phenomenon. So there are over 300 undergraduate programs, probably more than that, because ASHA they can't truly track all the undergraduate programs. They try, but they change so often and there's no accreditation for undergraduate programs. So really, they only can track the master's, SLP, and the audiology clinical entry-level degree programs. So the ones under CAA accreditation. Even the PhD programs are difficult to track, but easier than the undergrad, because some universities only have undergrad. And so the point that I'm making is that the bottleneck prevents minorities, most importantly, from entering the field. There just are not enough seats. And the programs typically are not at HBCUs. In fact, I want to venture out to say that there might be 7 programs at HBCUs, and some of those HBCUs are counted more than once because they have a master's in undergrad, right? So like Howard is counted more than once if you go on EdFind. So the opportunities for minorities to even get into the field is extremely limited. There are not enough seats in master's programs as compared to the number of people who are graduating with undergraduate degrees in CST. They will not all get into a master's program, period. Even if they all wanted to, they couldn't possibly, because statistically speaking, there just are not enough seats. And I'm just talking about speech pathology, but audiology as well. There are even fewer programs, right, than accredited speech pathology programs. If you look at the distribution of programs throughout the nation, and going back to HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, and Asian, right, Pacific Islander serving institutions, there are more programs rising in those latter categories, Asian and Hispanic, but not in HBCUs. So you see that we have an issue with over-identification or under-identification of African Americans or and minorities in general. We know that because Congress publishes a report every year on special education, and they talk and they show you that Black students are 1.8 times, that's almost 2 times more likely to go to be identified as having a requiring special education. We know that the number one disability in special education is what? Speech and language impairment. So we know these issues, but we don't have the service. We don't have the professionals who are competent and capable of addressing these needs. We started off our conversation talking about the value of being bidialectal, but honestly, it's frowned upon. Even me talking to you in my vernacular right now could be frowned upon. Someone could dismiss and hear African Americanism in my voice and say, oh, she's ignorant because she speaks AAE. We're still at that level. And it's sad because as professionals, you would think that you would know that if I can code switch, I have a cognitive advantage, if anything. Let's just leave it at that. So for me to choose to use my dialect is a notion of confidence, because I understand that this is a time where I could be code switching and I choose not to, because what I need to say, I can't say it that way, right? I can't translate been done, because your tense, that tense doesn't exist in mainstream American English. I can't translate you be faking. It doesn't exist in mainstream American English. There is no habitual tense. So some things I have to say in my dialect, and when I'm serious about something, my pitch lowers because that's a cultural phenomenon. Just like when you're serious about something, your pitch rises because that's your cultural phenomenon. It's just the way the cultures are. And who am I if I can't be me? So when we see that we have a lack of clinicians who are capable and competent of serving children from diverse backgrounds, especially those who come from socioeconomic statuses that are lower, so they have poverty as a factor, and that exacerbates conditions, then you would think that as a profession, we will create more opportunities to have more clinicians, not just of color, but of specific colors, right? And so, like, we're not going to just say, oh, we just want more of color. What's that mean? What does that mean? What does the community need, and how can we address it? And it doesn't mean that we need all Black clinicians. I'm not saying that, or all Hispanic clinicians, or all one of anything. I'm saying we should be able to provide opportunities so that we can achieve these strategic objectives that the association has, which are to increase the diversity. They have, I don't know if you know about the Envision Future, but they have strategic objectives. One of them is to increase the diversity of the professions, specifically with underserved populations. They label Black, Hispanic, right, underserved populations. Another one is to even increase, right, with the LGBTQ community. Another one is to increase males in the profession. So we have these strategic objectives, but we don't have opportunities or places for these Black clinicians, these Hispanic clinicians to study. We just don't. And then we're not accepting them into the programs. If you look at the programs in the diversity index across programs, the CSD education survey comes out every year, and they can't even report on the diversity, because if they do, they identify the students, because there's so few diverse students in programs. If it's one Black student in the whole program, and you put, the one Black, they're gonna know it's Sandy, it's her.
Can't be anonymous.
The they're going to see, oh, that's Valencia. Like, they're going to know because it's so few. They usually have one seat, and then they make up these BS reasons. Oh, it's the GRE scores. Well, if you know the GRE is biased against African Americans in particular and Hispanics because of the cultural implications within the test, just like the SAT, why do you make that a requirement? Why? That's contradictory to what you say you believe. It's like, I want the profession to, take a little more responsibility in their role in reducing the rate in which diverse across the spectrum, not just diverse from one group, but across the spectrum within the need that the field has. I want us to take a little more responsibility and just call a spade a spade. It's not to be mad at anybody. It's not to be combative. It's just to acknowledge the elephant in the room. We don't do that enough. So that's my takeaway is, how can I increase awareness? How can I increase perspective taking? We talk about perspective taking skills with children on the spectrum, but do we do that within ourselves? Do we look within and say, maybe we could do some things a little bit differently? After all, we are a language profession. We are a communication profession. We do understand that you can't take away culture from language. So having certain expectations about language ability might not be fair to diverse clinicians, because you can't separate culture from language. So really, we're only making opportunities for people who can fit the mainstream mold to exist in this profession. And that's why when you see such Black excellence, right, in terms of clinicians, you're like, wow, you're great. You got to be great.
Man, you don't have a choice.
You got to be able to spit it. What do you mean? Right? But the profession can only go as far as the public values it. And do you understand that most of the clients that I serve, first of all, not my caseload is not all Black. I'm in private practice, so it's also an issue of access. Yeah. Most of my clients, I have a very diverse client group, but just in general, if the Black people who come to me, I'm usually the third or fourth clinician that they've found, right? And they're usually just done by the time they get to me. It's like, I heard about you, right? And so they're willing to be flexible with me because I need flexibility, right? So they're like, I'm willing to deal with it. I just want my son to get help at this point. Why is that? Because they don't value our services, because they've gotten services that were not appropriate for them. And so they're thinking this is stupid. They don't even know. Sometimes the things that clinicians might do actually have meaning. And, you can't be dumb and be a speech pathologist. So usually what we're doing is very specific and targeted, and we really think things out. Clinicians are amazing at that. I rarely see a horrible clinician. I mean, rarely. Right. The problem is that we're horrible at communicating. And so we don't explain to parents what we're doing. We don't consider their cultural perspective, how they would look at it. We just are dismissive. And so they're like, this is dumb, and my son is not making progress. I'm out. And that's because, again, we don't have enough clinicians who are thinking about culture, who are thinking about the values of the clients that they serve. They're only thinking about their ingrained belief system because they don't know any other way. They're very rigid. They only know the mainstream way. So this work is to not only make opportunities better in terms of assessment and treatment and identification of diverse students, Hispanics, African Americans, whatever, but it's also to enlighten SLPs to kind of open up and say, wait a minute, my way isn't the only way. The end game is to help. And if I am doing things my way, there's no way I'm helping, because that's not transferable. I have to make sure that I'm addressing their needs so that this thing can work. It's not going to work if I don't have buy-in. And that's the one thing we don't have. And if you don't have buy-in, if you don't have value in the field, you don't have a profession. We'll lose our profession. If we don't get more diverse professionals in this field, we're going to be in jeopardy of the quality of this profession on a whole, because the consumers won't want us. Because I don't know last time you checked, but America is diverse.
Man,
America is very diverse.
That's always my whole point. Like, it's just, it doesn't match up. It doesn't match up.
It's supply and demand. It's supply and demand. So we've got clinicians out here who can't serve the population. So the population doesn't want the services. Well, then what do you think that means for us? Now we got to lower our rates, man, unless you can serve. And then you are a golden egg. You're a unicorn, which is what we end up seeing. John Payne, Janetta Davis, they're unicorns. True. Orlando Taylor, unicorn, right? They're unicorns because they have to be exceptional. You can't be good. You have to be the best.
I don't know any Black therapist that's not amazing. Like, you have to be. And it's not even just like amazing clinicians. Like, you have to be amazing at every aspect of your life to be able to get to this point in your life.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Linda Bland Stewart. Amazing. Like, these people, the people on Howard's faculty now, I mean, they, we have a lot of other issues that can prevent like the grant work coming in, right? In terms of us being able to kind of really be out there and visible like we want to be. Some people are, very visible, but some people are doing some really great work that is just not being seen on the rate that it should be. But there are also issues because if we don't have the big grant money to get the studies published in the journals that we need to have them published in, because some of those journals want to see that you've used certain equipment, right? Depending on your research, that you use certain approaches that are costly. And so if you don't have that backing, that financial backing, your research is going to get overlooked, and you're going to have to shoot for a lower tier journal that has less readership. So then the field doesn't really know about it. Right. And so people are not able to disseminate phenomenal research because everything is biased against diversity. Everything. Academia is biased against Blackness. The profession oftentimes is biased, and you can't say you're not if you're making requirements that Black people can't meet. Then that's bias, right? And not all Black people, but in general. So if you have a language proficiency issue, that's kind of how are you defining that? And not just with that language proficiency thing, it's just so many things. Linguistic discrimination is also in our essays, right? If you have essays and you have requirements for mainstream American English in an essay, well, writing is the most difficult form of communication. So if someone can't code switch, they're not going to be able to write in standard American English. So I'm not saying be lenient across the board with everything. I'm just saying be aware.
Just take into consideration. That's it.
Take it into consideration, right? And maybe pop up some more programs in some HBCUs and give some more scholarships and some more opportunities so that we can get a more diverse professional makeup. Because if we have that, then these ideas that I have and that you have and that the few brown clinicians have wouldn't be so exciting and so rare, because it will be something that we're consistently talking about, and we don't have to always revisit the same idea every 20 years. Right, when a new person comes at the table. But if we have people from all backgrounds always at the table, then we can make much further progress because we're meeting the needs of the consumers because we represent them. That's the point.
I was just talking about this the other day. Like, you're just missing out on so many different perspectives when you're literally keeping these perspectives from the table. Like, why would you? It's just so much that you're missing out on. And that's that means that the field is missing out on it as well. It's not even just like ASHA, it's the people that we're serving.
Yeah, we can't blame ASHA because we are ASHA. So I don't like to walk in that, ASHA's wrong. No, ASHA has a national office and a membership body. It's only 300 something people in the national office, maybe 4. Of those, when I worked at ASHA, 35 were clinicians, audiologists and or speech pathologists. So that is a few amount of clinicians making an influence on the work of the association. It's really the members, but who's on the committees, right? Academia. Well, academia is the most least diverse in our profession. And we have a lot of diverse clinicians. We don't have a lot of diversity at the research or PhD level. And even if we do, they're not in academia. They're in private practice. So we don't have people who are serving on the committees to speak up about these issues enough. They're doing it. It's just not enough, because it's not enough of them at the table. So that's, again, why we need more programs at diverse institutions so we can recruit more students, so we can train them and expose them to more research to get them not only to become clinicians, but to also consider research and to consider a faculty career so that the system can perpetuate itself in a better way, because it's perpetuating itself. Right? It's just not perpetuating itself in the desired way because now the needs have changed, but it's still operating in the 60s.
Right. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Yeah. So that's what I would like. I would like for more clinicians to consider this field, understand that they might be rare. They might be the only one in their program, and that might be hard, but you can find some mentors to support you. And because the field needs you, we really do. We need diversity, and we need all clinicians. And just because you might not be Black doesn't mean there's, or Hispanic or Asian, it doesn't mean that there isn't a lane for you. There's absolutely a lane for you. Absolutely. Some white clinicians are the most profound. I love Kate Crowley. I love the way she advocates, for students of color, particularly for Hispanic students. Kate Crowley was going to Africa years ago, and before it was cute, right? And I went with her. To Ghana. So it's, everybody has a role because some people can advocate the way others can't. So we need voices from everybody. We need consideration from everybody. So it's not about not having white clinicians. It's about having more diversity, period.
Exactly. That's the point I was going to make, is it's not just about being Black. We need all types of diversity, all types, from neurodiversity to the way, just like, I feel like the stereotypical SLP is such a monolith that needs to be changed. Like, I don't want people to think of a perky white girl when they think of SLPs. Like, I want you to think of the various identities that are out there, because there's so many that have been hidden, and it's just not the time for that anymore. Now we're all coming out the woodworks and people are surprised, but it's just time for a change. So I appreciate everything that you had to say, and you've given us so many gems. But I need one more. So I want to know, if you could go back in time to any time where you feel like, it would have been most prominent for you, what advice did you need to hear when you were younger?
Well, because I come from a low socioeconomic background, I needed to hear that I could do it. And the first person who told me that I could get a PhD was a white man, Jay Lucker. And I was an undergrad, and I was in his speech science class. And he said, "You really seem like you like research. You should consider a PhD." I said, "Me? Nah." And he said, "No, you'd be good." So it wasn't just consider it, it was you'd be good at it. And I was like, if he thinks I'm good at it, this is why we need white people to speak up too, yes. Right? Because I'm like, if he thinks I can do this, maybe I can. So,
and look at you now.
We need everybody has a role. God made a multifaceted world for a reason. Multi-ethnic is beautiful. That's what gives the world color. So everybody has a role to play, and having people speak life to me. Loren's company is now Speak Life, right? Having people speak life into me early on shaped me to help me see that I could do it. So if anything, I wish I had believed it a little sooner, because perhaps I could have developed better soft skills, better time management, better organization. Those things are kind of difficult to develop when you come from a circumstance of stress and you come from a circumstance of urgency and of survival mode. You can't really focus on being thoughtful and forward thinking when you're trying to figure out what you're going to eat today. So if I had developed those skills, I would be much further, because now I see you don't have to be smart. Most people who are very successful have average intelligence. It's not a matter of being smart. It's a matter of being successful. And success is something that's predictable. If you do certain things every day, momentum is going to build and lead you to success. You ain't got to be smart. Don't nobody expect you to create a Tesla in your PhD program. We expect you to say A plus B is C. So it's not about, I thought I had to be so great. I worked so hard to prove that I was intelligent. And intelligence has nothing to do with it. It's work ethic and diligence. Yep. Do you follow directions? Are you reliable? Are you consistent? Do you understand basic math? Like I'm talking about 1 + 1 is 2. Can you draw a graph? Can you show up and finish the job? Like, this is what people care about, character. You can get someone who has no skills but has the best character. You can get someone with a lot of skills who has a horrible character. I'd pick the best character any day. Every day. I can train you on your skills. I can't train you how to be a good person. Most SLPs are good people. And so we want to, evolve our skill set. And that comes from increased awareness and, believing that this is important. This is something that you can do. We all want to get to the end result. So it's like, how do you get to the end result? Well, you level up in what you're doing daily. What did he say? The secret to your success is hidden in your daily routine.
Yep.
So I wish I had known earlier those things, because I was focused on performing well. That's not it. You will perform well if you're prepared. And Oprah says, preparation is when opportunity, success is when preparation meets opportunity. Yep. Opportunities come in flows and, in moments, and you can't grab an opportunity if you're not prepared. You will miss it. So the only way to get ready, I love this. I used to say this, I still say this all the time, is I don't have to get ready because I stay ready.
Stay ready. You ain't gotta get ready. That's what I was thinking this whole time. Like in summation,
Yes,
stay ready. You ain't
that's
gotta get ready.
AAE, right? Stay ready. I stay ready. That's AAE because that's another ongoing tense.
It's true. It's ongoing,
Like
never
in New
ending.
Orleans, they say steady. We steady mobbing. We steady
Yeah.
ready. Like,
Yeah.
so if we steady ready, we ain't gotta get ready because we ready.
Man, we gotta leave him with that. We gotta leave him
Another
with that.
word.
We gotta leave him with that. I appreciate it all, Dr. Perry. This is awesome. Everybody's going to get something from this, and you all can see why she was such a great professor for me and for everybody else. So thank you again for being here. Let the people know where they can find you on social media. If you have anything you want them to know about, take the stage.
Okay, yeah. Valencia Perry is my name. On social media, it is at language_research_therapy. I've considered changing it many times. I'm not as active as I would like to be, but I'm going to do better about that. And still juggling a lot of things right now. Yeah, and so you can reach me at Howard. My email is bcperry@howard.edu. And yeah, I'll just leave that. That's enough.
Check her out. And I know there's a lot of future SLPs that are going to Howard for their master's program either next year or, are planning to be there. So definitely look out for her. Let her know that you took these gems and are using them.
Good. I hope
yes,
so.
I
And if
hope
you
you
don't
do.
go to Howard, I hope you use these gems. I hope you consider this profession. I hope you understand that you can reinvent yourself in this profession. And so that's why there's a need for people who have a desire to help, and all the other skills you could develop. Even if you don't get all the skills in your master's program, you have a lifetime to develop those skills. But it's very difficult to switch careers later in life. So choose wisely. And I think that this is a great profession for those who fit this personality type, this type of work.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. Thank you again for being here, and I'll talk to you soon, Dr. Perry.